Welcome everyone to another episode of the Indie Hangout. I am Pneumatics. You may know me over on YouTube, and you might catch my streams over on Twitch with another X at the end. I am joined by my wonderful co-hosts here, Az and Kronos. What's up, guys?
What's going on? Maztec Gaming here. As from Maztec Gaming, you can find me over on YouTube, Maztec Gaming, or over on Twitch, Maztec_Gaming.
How's it going, everybody? Kronos here. You can find me on YouTube at OSOK Kronos or on Twitch as just OSOK Kronos with no space in between.
Awesome. So, episode 4, guys, can you believe it? We've been doing this for a whole month, actually longer than that, let's be honest, but holy cow, we've come so far.
You know, time flies when you're having fun, seriously.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, honestly. So today, we got a good one for our listeners, I think. I'm always excited whenever we get into another episode because we get to interact with our listeners with the polls and the question of the pod, and it kind of gives them a glimpse into what the episode might be, you know? So today we have everything about co-op and multiplayer for indie games, because what's more fun than playing an indie game than when you can play it with your friends as well?
For sure, this is a very exciting subject for me because, you know, I've done a lot of friend group streaming on indie games here lately. So.
Yeah, I do have a love-hate relationship with indie games that are multiplayer. Not just indie games that are multiplayer, but like any games multiplayer. Like, I have to be in the mood for it, you know? But before we really dive into this, I think we should let our listeners know that they should definitely join our Discord, the Indie Hangout Podcast Discord, if you haven't already, because like I said, you get to get in on the polls. You can go ahead and answer with us the question of the pod. And like I said, you might get some glimpses into the next episodes coming up. You're going to be getting into some of the early stuff that we're going to start recording the podcast with. And I think you'll find it really exciting when we start doing that, especially when we start getting some developers on to talk with as well. You'll get a little bit of the inside scoop before we even start recording. And I think that'll be a lot of fun for a lot of people. So definitely, if you haven't, go into the About section of us over on Spotify or on YouTube right now and any other platforms we may be on before I end this recording. And click that link to join the Discord, please. That would be really cool of you guys to join. So now, getting into the main topic. So let's say something bold here. Indie games just may be stealing the show with multiplayer and co-op games with their unique mechanics and viral successes, right? But before we dive into the mechanics, we got to figure out why these games are so special. Let's do a quick go around. What's the most memorable multiplayer indie game moment you've had recently? I think I would start with you, Kronos, because of your shenanigans in Repo.
Yeah, it's definitely some of the Repo moments. I mean, like the other night, the way we ended the stream was like hilarious because like you can, you know, the shotgun that you can get, you can rotate it around, and Miles literally pointed it at himself and took himself out at the very end of the stream, and I laughed so hard at that. And like you don't get those moments playing by yourself. I hate to say it that way, but you know, it's just, you don't get those laughing with your friend moments.
There's got to be so weird playing that by yourself. Like, I don't see it being, like, I've seen you play it by yourself until someone else gets in or someone else is able to jump on with you. And it's very, I think it changes the dynamic, right?
Yeah, it gets more like, I don't know, like almost like it gets into the horror genre of it where it's kind of like, it's boring somewhat because you're just trying to be really careful, and it's also like a scare to it because, you know, you're like, where's the enemy coming from? But as soon as you get that second person in there, though, it just changes the whole aspect of the game.
Yeah. You know, for me, I think like I'm trying to think of like the last multiplayer game I played, but I think what's better is to go over like the last memorable part of like Among Us, even though I played that so long ago. It's just something, it's like, okay, so me and my wife, Babe, we played Among Us with a bunch of other people in the community, right? And we together, of course, we're like, okay, we're gonna have a pact. You know, we'll have like a code word. If you're the guy, the person, or the killer, just say this, and I'll do the same, right? And I thought we were good. I thought, you know, we're on the same page. We were not on the same page at all. Like, she took me out the first time. Like, I was the first one on her list. Like, after the fact, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You would just completely ignore everything we said before. And her excuse afterwards, she's like, well, I'm not a cheater. So.
But the thing is, she cheated by doing that to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because obviously, if I was the killer first, then I would have been the one that I would have said the code word. But no, she was the killer first before me, and yeah, she took me out. So let's just say there was no mercy after that when I was the or the imposter. I should say is the right word for it. What about you, Miss?
I've had some internet issues over the years that kind of limit my ability to play multiplayer, but hopefully that's being remedied here in the next couple of months. But I'm really getting tired of saying that too, because it's been in the next couple of months for a few months now. But I think going back to the last time I played online was Phasmophobia with a bunch of friends, and just to be able to watch them like going after the different, well, trying to find or identify the different types of ghosts or demons or revenants inside the house is always fun, and watching people freak out. There is such a thing as playing that one too much though, and to the point where it's like not really scary anymore. But I've played it by myself. It's kind of boring by itself, I feel. I think it's more fun with friends and whatnot, but I really enjoy it that way. But we had lots of fun playing with that group while I was playing that. And once my internet gets better on my channel, I'll be doing more multiplayer stuff. And I'll be able to talk a little bit more intelligently than, hey, my memory was from 2 years ago at that point.
No, it's good because I was bringing up, man, that had been years ago when I played Among Us. Probably more recently was definitely Phasmophobia. And I think, honestly, Maz, dude, I think it depends on the person, okay? You may think it's boring by yourself, and I think it's frightening. I'm like scared out of my mind. Dude, I can't, the last time I played, I was probably with a group of people, obviously, like, I think it was with NDB, I was with Selena, and I was with Xenix, aka Lychee, aka, he's gone by a couple different names, but anyways, so we're all playing, and each one of them got X-nayed. They're done, right? And I was at the edge of the front door, and I was like trying to, even though I wasn't by myself, like at that moment I was by myself, right? So I can't hear them. And I'm like, I'm freaking out on the inside. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. I'm like at the door. I'm like, the ghost is going to haunt as soon as I go in. I can't do this, guys. And I turned around. I go, nope, I'm done. Sorry, guys. Even. And I got in the, truck. I got in the van and I took off.
Wow, man. Well, and that's one thing. When we first started playing it, we were playing it on Discord. So we didn't, like, when you die in the game, we were playing it wrong. We were brand new to it. We were just playing it and talking on Discord. So when you die, you're still there. So it didn't have that type of feel. Eventually we swapped over where if you die, you can't talk, which is really awesome. It kind of adds to the element of it. But dude, seriously, and I've said it to you a few times, I've mentioned it in my streams to you a couple of times, I need a solo Phasmophobia stream from Pneumatics. Down in your basement, by yourself. I challenge you.
Oh my God. You put me on the spot.
That would be fun.
You got to do it, bro. That would be hella fun to watch. And I guarantee you a lot of our listeners would tune in for that.
Like on edge just thinking about it.
Yeah, that little...
Man. I don't know why. It sounds so weird. I don't know if other listeners feel the same way I do. Like, and maybe other people that play games that are like, they're not even, it's a game, right? It's like, why is it scary? If anything, maybe a little anxious for the jump scares and whatever, but like, why do you feel scary? And it's like, honestly, probably if I took the noise and music out and I just played, probably wouldn't be that scary, obviously, because that ambient music in the background and those little noises that kind of like trick you as in putting on these headphones that kill all the noise around me and only let me focus in on the game. That's what really digs in at me,
100%. And that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to play on your senses. It's designed to make you feel uncomfortable. Like, that environment you're in is stuffy and cold. You can put yourself in that situation, especially if you've had like some sort of real paranormal experience in your life. You can kind of relate. I know that I've had some of those experiences before, and that can kind of, the way that they present that game, they put a lot of work into that game. It's one of those things where they're playing on your senses, knowing, hey, and I bet you those developers have had a type of experience like that before, and they've dealt in, and they have consulted with paranormal investigators and all kinds of, and probably went and heard ghost stories and get different ideas on how to make it. So trying to make that as an authentic feel as possible. And if you are putting noise canceling headphones on, you have no awareness of what's going on around you in real life. So, you're feeling everything in that game, and You never know what's behind you at that point.
Yeah, dude. Leading into, some unique mechanics that define indie multiplayer games. The proximity chat that comes from games like Phasmophobia and even Repo and Lethal Company. Like Phasmophobia, I think started the lead with that because, like, what else takes you and makes you more immersed in a game than not only with the music and ambience and the noises, but also your voice. Like, as you're playing that game, you can't just like have someone walk by and them trying to talk to you as you're playing that game because you're like, no, 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 get away. The ghost is hunting. I can't talk to you right now.
Absolutely.
It's a whole different dynamic. I thought that was the coolest thing when Phasmophobia came out. And I don't even remember who suggested it to me, or it was just I saw a bunch of my streamer friends playing it, so I wanted to play it. And then they were like, oh, yeah, by the way, it uses your mic. I'm like, what? I didn't even know they could do something like that. That's freaking cool.
Yeah, there was a lot of cutting edge features to that, and a lot of people have picked up on that since. But the thing is, are you familiar with the game? This is a lot, dude. I am dating myself here. It's a PlayStation 2 game. SOCOM,
Oh, man.
U.S. Navy SEALs. Are you familiar with that game? You had to have heard that in the past.
Yes, I've played it.
Yeah, that game came
I've
with a
never played
headset,
it.
didn't it? It came with a headset, and it came with voice commands, so you could actually command people in your squadron to go in your platoon to go do different things, different positions and whatnot. They came up with
I've seen
Splinter
gameplay
Cell.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, they had one of the original Splinter Cells. You could whistle to get a bad guy's attention to come over to you and whatnot. Same thing with Metal Gear. But I think Phasmophobia kind of took that to new levels. So it's interactive. It's different than what I'm talking about. You go here, these are preset commands, right? And there are only certain things that you can say in Phasmophobia, but they'll respond based on what you're saying. How old are you? Old. Where am I? Behind. Where are you? Behind. It's all those types of things that it understands what words you're saying and responds to you appropriately. And to your point, I think it was really that's kind of put that feature kind of in the forefront to people and say, hey, wow, this is a really awesome feature that allows us to make the game even more immersive.
Thinking on that, I used to have a game on the Nintendo 64. It was called Hey You Pikachu, and it actually came with a mic that you hook up to your Nintendo 64.
Yes.
And you could tell Pikachu to like jump or run, and it would actually do what you said. And that was back on the 64.
I remember that
Wow.
game.
I didn't, man, that's so long ago. I think it's one of those, I probably wanted that game, but my parents like, nah, you got your Game Boy. Go play Pokemon on that. That's cool. I didn't actually know that it worked that way.
And then, y'all talking about like voice chat and stuff, and like Repo, the monsters hunt based off of sound. If you're talking, they'll find you quicker.
Mm-hmm. You get that Quiet Place game
So
now.
if you're
Yeah, like the old guy that goes around. If you say anything, that's why he shoots at you, is because he hears noise, so he shoots towards the noise. So if you start talking, he shoots at you. If you're quiet,
He just keeps
that also adds in like another dynamic, because it's like when your buddy gets blasted right in front of you, you want to start laughing, but if you laugh, he's gonna shoot you. So like I've caught
They do that
myself
on
multiple
purpose,
times,
too.
like sitting here just
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've caught myself like covering my mouth so that way I'm not like laughing out loud to where it picks it up. I'm like, no, 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 no.
See, it's good that you do that, man, because that would suck if you were the type of person just, I'm going to just mute my mic and laugh, You're playing it legit.
right.
Yeah, I don't want to do that because I'm like, no, if I laugh too loud and get shot, hey, that's on me. That's.
Dude, I'm so loud when I play my games and do my streams. I wouldn't survive a second.
Oh, you'd have a blast with Repo. He would.
Yeah, that game was fun. I wish I would have kept up. There's so many nights that I see Chronos streaming that Repo, and I want to jump in, but it's like, I'm working on my game or something. Like, I'm trying to be dedicated, but like, I just want to be like, nah, I'll just jump in for the night, but I haven't. That one night I did, but because it just seems like so much fun. I think it's what's cool too is that, I feel like a lot of games have used proximity chat, but a lot of games have a hard time having players use just that instead of like Discord or, Xbox Party Chat, whatever it may be. But when it has something to do with the game itself, like Repo or Phasmophobia or Lethal Company, obviously gamers are more likely to use the in-game chat. And I think also, like, you think about it, like, have you guys ever played Lethal Company, by the way?
I
have
downloaded it,
not.
but I've never played it. But I've watched a ton of people play it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I never played it, but I watched a lot of other people play it. And supposedly it's like really good. It's another, one of those kind of goof off, run around, your buddy got nabbed and you're like, "Oh my god, I need to get out of here," and running for your life kind of deal. And but also laughing about it at the same time. And, when that happens and the monster comes for you. So I was just curious because it does pertain with all these other games. And, like you made it perfectly clear, Kronos, it's like that horror aspect is your buddy just got swiped up or something and you want to laugh about it, but you can't because you're going to get hit yourself.
Yeah, like, you're next if you don't control it. And I'm sure we all know, like, if it's a funny moment but you can't laugh, that makes it that much harder that you want to laugh.
Yeah. I'm curious why, you brought up a couple games in the past, right? From AAA companies that made their game have something to do with voice input. But honestly, I can't think of many other AAA games nowadays that are doing that. I mean, you see the super success of all these other indie games that are popping up doing this. But I don't know. I guess I just haven't seen any really good one. And it's also a thing of like going into is like these games have kind of a freedom to do this and experiment with this mechanic, and it worked out. Where AAAs are not so much keen on doing that, but usually you find it when it works for an indie. AAAs like to steal it up. Can you guys think of any? I don't think I can't think of any that use voice input.
Yeah, there's a
Not
couple.
really.
There's a couple. You got Tower 3D Pro, which is a AAA game. That's an airport simulator.
Okay.
And that relies heavily on voice recognition for like tower control, which is crazy, right? So you're like the air traffic control guy. So that's kind of cool. There's some of that in games like Overwatch and Call of Duty now. And Arma 3 also allows for voice control through mods.
I mean, not so much that I totally was thinking about this, just like it just came across my mind is like DayZ, right? It's kind of like you have to use their in-game voice chat to talk with players. Although I don't know if it interacts with zombies or yeah, I'm not for sure. But like it's one of those it's very much needed to talk to other people. Otherwise, you're just kind of running around aimlessly and like if you don't talk to people, they might just shoot you right away. It's kind of an integral part of the game.
Yeah. So
But yeah.
DayZ does not have voice recognition features. It's just
Okay.
for VoIP conversation with other players.
Okay. Which, like I said, I think a lot of these indie games do a way better job of having players use their in-game chat than a lot of these AAAs. I think it's also, like I said, going into it, indies, they make the risks that AAAs aren't willing to do. A lot of AAA companies, they're a big company. They want to keep making money so they can stay afloat, so they can pay their people, and they want to do what they know is going to sell, right? And
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just like, yeah, they kind of stick to like the normal, like this works, this is the pattern, let's stick to it. But indie games, they got, hey, let's try this. Let's see if we can make this work and stand out a little bit in this aspect or something.
It makes sense
Yeah.
if you think about it. How big is a AAA game typically, like as far as the scale of the game and whatnot, compared to an indie game? Most indie games. I mean, you got some huge indie games, right? Think about that for a second. How complex are some of these bigger AAA titles?
Thinking about it that way, like the scale of scope of a AAA versus an indie, right? It also has to do with budget. AAAs have a lot of money. Think of Epic. Throwing money at something, they can throw a lot of money at something, and the scope of the game can be massive. Doesn't really matter to a point, right? They obviously want to try and make their money back, but when it comes to indies, you only have probably a set budget, unless you go into a Kickstarter, and then you still got a set budget. It's not like it's unlimited. You got a certain amount of money to work with, so your game better be good, and that leads to a lot of indie devs focusing on usually a single mechanic that does really, really well. And they focus in on that, they niche down on that. And that's why you get these weird creative games popping up, because you have to be creative with a small budget.
Right. I was actually thinking pneumatics a little bit more along the lines of how big a game is versus how small a game is. How as good of a game, and we'll bring Phasmophobia back into the spotlight here for a second. How big is that game really? It's a small stage on Unity, right? Each individual place, right?
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of areas where you need to have that voice recognition. Now, also, where's that voice recognition feature in Phasmophobia? Is it wherever you go? It's only with that voice box, right? So it's only for certain little
Yeah.
tiny parts of the game. So it's a very, very, it's as important of a feature as it is. It's a very small portion of the game overall. Now, put that in a scale of something like a No Man's Sky or something like that. And, I said it's like 40 trillion or 40 quadrillion planets that you could do in our first episode. It's actually 5 quintillion planets that can actually populate in that game, just as a side as a side note, right?
That
Which
is
crazy.
wild.
Yeah, isn't that nuts? But now that we're saying that, think about what you would have to do to scale that voice recognition across everything in that game. You're going to run into complexity issues. You'll need you'll have the need for high quality microphones, potential for inaccuracies and frustrating user experiences at that point. So we're talking about, even though like these indie games use voice recognition more than AAA games, it's because typically the Phasmophobias of the world, the little tiny games, and I'm not talking about the tiny games as far as success or anything like that. It's just their build. You use Unity, correct? So you know how big or how small you can make an area. So that's the thing, is with a small little area like that and a small little feature, it's a lot easier to be able to use that kind of technology versus a larger game.
That is a very good point once you think about like how that would play into trying to make that work in like a Call of Duty game,
Right. And think about the development
in the corner
of
trying
that.
to hide from. That's what I'm saying. Like if you're like, how much more time would it take to use like an in-game voice thing to where it's, like if you were trying to call people over to the corner or something, like you were talking about with, Splinter Cell and stuff earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, when we use something like that in Splinter Cell, that's a preset thing. It's listening for anything. You could say, hey, or you could whistle, and it's going to have the same result, right? So it's one of those types of things where it has to make sense. And if we're scaling it to the size of a AAA game, think about the cost, the R&D for that. First of all, they probably don't have something that can be that intuitive yet to scale an entire game. That would be wildly expensive.
I'm going to counter you on this. I think it wouldn't be that hard, to be honest. So my reasoning is, like, as you were talking about it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I'm like, wait, honestly, now I could be wrong. Obviously, as being an indie dev, I only know, a certain amount of like the voice input. But if you do it right with based on how things are coded, right? So let's say I have an array of enemies and I have, enemy A, B, C, D. And I can say in my array, in my code, and this is me just thinking like, okay, in No Man's Sky, let's make it more real here. Like No Man's Sky, we have 5 different aliens in my array. And I say in array, count 0 to 3. And those are the ones. Make it a simple bool statement. If 0 through 3, which it would be 4 of the aliens out of the 5, allow the code of voice recognition to be run. Else, don't run. And this is I'm just thinking very, very simple, something very simple, as implementing that input of voice doesn't seem it would be too bad when you think of the scale of how many procedurally generated planets are. It's kind of the same way with planets and like the environment and the flora and all that. Like when you go to each planet, they all have their own flora based on probably a specific amount of whatever is tagged to that planet, like the toxic planet or the paradise planets. And it's probably running the code as you go into a solar system and it goes, okay, generate this based on what's set in this array, this array, this array. And I don't think it would be too hard for them to go, okay, add this bit of code to run that we made early on for this planet to work with this planet, but not this planet. I don't know if any of that made sense. My brain was just kind of going 1,000 miles a minute when I was talking about that. But in my head, I don't think it would be too hard to do. But I think the bigger question would be, is it worth it?
That makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, think about the scale. So you mentioned a couple different arrays and you can copy and paste in different planets and whatnot. But the thing is, those planets in that game, they don't exist until that player finds that system. So, and the reason why it still runs so smoothly, and actually I just started streaming that again on my channel last week, and it runs much smoother. They've definitely streamlined the loading times and whatnot. But the thing is that those instances don't exist until the player finds it. So how do you auto-populate those arrays for each individual alien species if they don't yet exist in the game?
So the way you would do it is based on trying to think of the best way to put it. Because you could think of it as it doesn't exist yet, but it's something that populates as soon as it's generated, right? And so if that code is already in that function to run as soon as it's auto-populated when the player gets into a solar system, then it's already there. So it's in the function already to work. It's kind of like the same thing as if you look at Minecraft and you go and chunks are loading, right? And this chunk is loaded, but the animals don't exist. But when the chunk loads, the game says, okay, based on this parameter and this biome and this and that, spawn sheep here and have them perform their AI functions. So just because it doesn't exist yet doesn't mean its AI functions don't exist. So as soon as it's populated, then the AI functions obviously are with the sheep and they will continue on.
I like that. That's a really good answer. And what you were saying before, it does make sense. But I think at the same time, I maintain that there's a lot of there's also other factors in place that could break that code at any given time and frustrate users. So, I mean, I say I agree to disagree. I believe it can be done. I just think it comes at quite an expense.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it for sure. And I agree with you on that point too, because obviously that's what I was getting at with what made sense with what you're saying is that if a player goes into it and that line of code fires off wrong, right? And then their voice recognition isn't working right, then they're going to get frustrated and be like, oh, this game's crap. Well, what did I get myself into? Is it worth it to even put in the game in the first place? If the main focus of the game isn't voice input to interact with the AI around you, then don't put it in because it's another thing that might have something go wrong with it. You'd rather focus on the things that the game is really meant to play well than things that are just an afterthought.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that.
No, awesome stuff. Oh, that was really cool. I love talking about stuff like that. And as the listeners can tell, we really geek out about that kind of stuff. So it's worth discussing stuff like that. The what ifs and ands and all that.
100%.
Also, all this got me thinking too. So going back, I talked about DayZ a little bit, and you had said that like the voice input with the environment around that's not a thing, right? So it relies on social interaction, just like Among Us and Liar's Bar, which Kronos has played. And Liar's Bar relies on social interaction and deception, right? I mean, I've never played it. I watched a few shorts of you, I think, or a video or a stream of you playing that Kronos.
Yeah, I mean, it's so like the initial, it's, a card game and stuff to where you're trying to deceive from the start with just how you play. But then the voice chat gives you that ability to add extra to it. Like you can taunt people like, did I really throw down a queen or did I throw down 3 kings? And it's like, or you can just be like, he's lying and try and talk somebody else into, like it does give you that ability to play on it for sure.
Yeah, and that ability to play on stuff like that, it's such a cool little mechanic that's the integral part of the game. Like that's the whole point of the game, right? Is trying to deceive, and that goes along with Among Us. It's the same thing. Social deduction, where who's the imposter, and who's a crewmate, and you're trying to deceive one another. Like the games wouldn't be successful and they wouldn't work if they didn't have that. Like that's what they're all about. And I think that separates them from other games. And yeah, we have talked before where these kind of games, they had their spark and they die off. But I don't know if you guys noticed, Among Us 3D came out. So there's still a demand for these games and they're still going strong. And I think it's safe to say that any small idea for an indie game is not a dumb idea because you never know what it might turn into from all the games that we've come across and all the games that have blown up, especially, like I said, especially these social interaction games, because there's so much to be had in them when they get into the hands of a content creator. I mean, how many times have you guys played? I mean, obviously with Kronos, you play in Repo, you've played Liar's Bar, me with Phasmophobia, and the same with Mass playing Phasmophobia, all these ones that are a lot of fun playing multiplayer that maybe we wouldn't have played before because maybe we didn't have friends who had the games, or it was easier to get a populated lobby playing those games while we're streaming,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like a while back, I did try to stream Among Us, and like nobody I knew played it, so I was trying to get people to watch and join my lobbies. It was hard to get an actual party going because you also couldn't talk to people either. So that's where like the game chat comes in handy.
Yeah.
For like let's see here, like Liar's Bar. That's where I met Miles. Was just a random game in Liar's Bar, and he was kind of joking around with us and cracking joke, having fun. And now he's playing games with us every time we stream. So it's
And see, I think that's the point I'm getting at is like the viral successes these games had grow a powerful community around us, right? I mean, there's so many people I've met and I call friends because of the games I've played. Whether it be single player or multiplayer, it's mostly multiplayer that I meet a lot of people. Hey, did you hear so and so's playing this game? No, but it's a lot of fun. We should jump in on his stream and jump into his lobby, and then push come to shove, eventually, you play enough games and then you get to know one another, and then you're playing other multiplayer games together. Seeing as I think like Among Us got a lot of popularity back in 2020 with the lockdowns and everything, and there are so many streamers out there playing this game because they wanted that interaction with people again, and it fueled its success, I think, and then probably created a lot of friendships along the way.
100%. And my favorite thing from 2020, before that, if you remember, there were a lot of like medical assessments that games are bad for you. They rot your brain. They cause bad habits. A lot of people get disconnected from reality. You can't tell the difference, these younger kids and whatnot. And then we all get locked down as a country. We all get isolated for months. Now all of a sudden these reports are saying, oh, it's really good for mental health if you play games. I agree with you on that. And I think that the power of community and viral successes, it spills beyond just games, just beyond indie games, beyond AAA games. Social media, there's different levels of social media, right? There's the social media that I'm not a huge fan of, which is like these platforms like Facebook and X and everything like that in terms of like personal social media. And then you've got other social medias that we're in, like we're in YouTube, we're on Twitch. Some of us are on TikTok, like it's Rumble. There's so many different social media platforms. I'll give you another example. Pneumatics, you came into my stream back in 2018 on Twitch. That's how I met you.
Has it been that long?
It's been that long, bro. Kronos, Miles, Liar's Bar. You never know when that next major piece of your channel or your community is going to come into that chat room. And that's the power of community right there. Make your viewers feel at home and comfortable. I had one person say to me once in one of my streams, it's like just gaming out and sitting on the sofa, having a beer and chilling with you, watching you play. That's the type of atmosphere that we want to create for our viewers. And that's really what helps cultivate that community. And then it also spills back into games. Like, again, Liar's Bar. He was playing Liar's Bar. You weren't necessarily, looking to find friends like that, but sometimes it just hits. You just hit it off the right way. Like Pneumatics and I hit it off at 18. Came into my stream, just chatting, and all of a sudden, he's creating and we are collaborating. We are supporting each other and just kind of growing together. It's a really important thing. The power of community, I think, is just all encompassing. Games, social media, interpersonal skills.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was going for. And obviously, it's part of our character that we love games. So it was that much easier to get on the same level with one another when we're playing games together, And it goes to show these little games blowing up like they did. And I'll just make some quick notes about like Among Us. They had a peak. They peaked at 447,000 concurrent players on Steam. Almost
That's
half
wild.
a million players. That's insane, dude.
And that's just Steam alone.
Yeah. That's only Steam. Holy cow. And so obviously with that, they were able to do a lot more, over, like I said, this year they came out with Among Us, the 3D, and then I should say Among Us 3D, and then they rebranded Among Us VR. It shows that, with how impressive it was back in 2020 and how great it was, even as a small game, there's still a demand for it. And then Lethal Company, we talked about that just real quick earlier. None of us have really played it. A lot of all three of us, I think, have seen a lot of streams about it and everything. That one had over 100,000 concurrent players in a month, outpacing AAA titles like Rust. I actually really like Rust. That's a really good game. I didn't play it too long, but that game I played with NDB. And the game that's the other thing. The game was $10 $10. $10. How many times, like from the first episode we talk about price of indie games and how much entertainment value you get out of that. My gosh, dude.
They're eking up already.
Yeah, I mean,
those prices are already eking up.
Yeah, unfortunately, what you stated earlier, I'm like, no, not already.
Yeah, it was funny because I was last week on May 13th. I bought The Precinct, which is an indie game that just came out, started streaming it last week on my channel, and it was $30. I got it for less, and you can get it on CD keys for $19.99, but it is, these prices are slowly creeping up just a little bit.
I wonder if it's because they're trying to push the envelope. They're like, well, the norm is $14.99. Let's eke it up $5. Let's eke it up $10. Let's see what happens.
So I'm afraid
because yeah. I think the other thing is this is coming from a lot of indie developers. They automatically know when they release their game that it's probably going to get a sale or discount in some way, shape, or form as soon as it comes out, and then it's going to go to normal price, and then at some point, during the holiday seasons, it's going to get another discount. So in actuality, the actual price, like if they're going to try and sell their game for $25, the majority of people are probably only going to be buying it for $19.99 because that'll probably be the normal time when sales are going on is people buying it up. Unless it's like me where I go nuts and I'm like, no, I need it right now. I can't wait for it. I'm a sucker for buying games at full price.
Right?
I'm too guilty myself.
Yeah.
I had to have that Precinct game.
It looks so good. It looks so good when you're playing it. I really think it's one of those. It's like, dude, you brought up Dave the Diver, okay? Now you're bringing up the Precinct. I don't have time for your games, Maz, okay? I have other games that it's going to go in my backlog, and then I'm going to feel bad that I haven't played it yet. Ugh.
More to come, my friend. More to come.
I haven't even played the game I downloaded. I played it once through Pixelia, and they've had a bunch of hot patches and fixes since that are making it better, like right away. And I'm like, I really want to jump on that. I've heard so much good about it. I feel like my Steam library is going to become full very quick over this year. Talking about the prices of games, right? It's not only the prices, as you were stating, Maz, like you have the scope of these small indie games that also pertains to the system requirements, usually not being like massive. You think about Call of Duty, I swear that game's up to like 20 gigs just to download. That's insane. That's literally insane, where you can go and download any of these smaller ones, like Among Us and Lethal Company and Phasmophobia, and you're not gonna, you can have a crappy computer and you can still run it, no problem. You're not gonna have an issue at all. And I think that aids in the community aspect, Yeah,
you got those minimum requirements that's going to allow you to use the game just fine. But then you have these bigger monstrosities of games, and I'll use the Oblivion remake as an example. It's 120 gigabytes. Final Fantasy 16, 152 gigabytes just to install it. I mean, it's a massive game. Red Dead Redemption 2, 120 gigabytes. Indiana Jones, 114 gigabytes. I'm kind of reading off of what I have in my library here. But then you've got No Man's Sky, 22 gigabytes. Grounded, 11 gigabytes. The Precinct, 7.4 gigabytes. Dave the Diver, we've talked about that numerous times. 5.5 gigabytes. So system requirements are a little bit less taxing. It's great to see, like with this Precinct that came out last week, the minimum requirements on that is like ridiculous. It is an i5 not a recommendation, but minimum, an i5 with a processor of like a GTX 660 Ti. I mean, right now if you are paying attention to NVIDIA GPUs, graphics cards, we're up to 5090. I think we're actually into the 60 series now. This is a brand new game that came out on May 13th. This can run at a minimum at a 660 instead of a 5090 or a 6070 or anything like that. Recommended, it's an i5, 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 2060 card. That's your recommended. But if you don't have a 2060 card, if it's a minimum, you can run it. And to your point, you can have a pretty crappy, outdated computer and still play a lot of these indie games. 100%.
Yeah, which is nice because you think about it. I've had plenty of times where I'd go and play, let's say I'd stream Call of Duty back in the day. And back on what you said, oh my God, 120 gigs. I was way off with Call of Duty only being 20 gigs. It's obviously got to be 120 plus. Jeez, I didn't realize that.
Which Call of Duty was that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. There's so many of
Black
them.
Ops
It
6?
was,
Modern Warfare 3 is 160, I think.
yeah, it's probably that one. It's not the most recent, but yeah, 160 gigs. And you think about it, like when I played Call of Duty and I was streaming it, and I'd be like, hey, if you guys want to jump in and squad up, let's jump in. And there was plenty of times people were like, oh, my computer can't run this, or, I don't have the space for it. I got to delete some games off of it, which is pretty annoying, because then it limits you to people that, may not have the means to be able to play that game. Whereas like I was saying before, like with these indie games, they're small, compact, don't require a lot and accessible to many people, which is probably also aiding in their success, where just pretty much if you have a decent computer, you'd be able to play it and still have a good time, and with a decent internet access as well. So
Just to add to that real
That's
quick,
like-
just to kind of clarify, it's Black Ops 6 is 102 gigabytes, but the system that it comes with, the COD HQ app, it's 300 gigabytes. And that includes a lot of different parts of Call of Duty, but it can be up to 300 gigabytes. But not everything has to be installed.
my God.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, on my Xbox, that hub thing is like you can jump from one game to another. So it's like all the Call of Duties in one central area.
Oh,
yeah, I think that's what that is supposed to be, Kronos. I believe that's what we're talking about here. It's called the COD HQ. It's an app, right?
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah.
you're
See, like
talking
I
about?
can go from Modern Warfare 3 to Black Ops 6, or I can even jump into Modern Warfare 2 or 1 if I wanted to. Also, they're all connected together, so it's actually just like one big download for all the games.
Right, which would be the 300 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, an example right there. And I think it goes to show with how big these communities can get with these indie games. It also makes it so like they differ from AAA fan bases with the multiplayer. I mean, I feel like there's so many small discords that are like specific for certain multiplayer games. And obviously there are for the big ones, right? Like Call of Duty and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like it's more like I don't know. I just feel like maybe you'd be more welcome in an Among Us Discord, and you'd feel more at home in like that tight knit community than a Call of Duty one, personally. What do you guys think?
Well, so just coming from me, I play a lot of Halo and stuff. Big AAA titles, I hate to say it, they're almost trying to kill communities. Like
Oh wow.
Halo, there's no post game or pre game lobbies anymore. There is no like dev chat between teams. You can only talk to your team if they have mics. Like it is so limited in trying to communicate with each other. You can't just party up with people instantly anymore. You got to go through a whole system to invite people. It's like they're taking the community vibes and they're just trying to make them in like, okay, hey, here's a game, just play it. Don't worry about making friends.
Why do you think they're doing that, Kronos?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And it drives me crazy because it's like that is what drives these games to stay relative. And, like back on the indie games, having that community, the people to play with, that's what makes them successful, with Repo or Lethal Company or Liar's Bar. If you don't have that interaction with like friends or other people, they're not fun to play. So if you take that aspect that makes a game fun and you start trying to dwindle it away, it's not going to have the longevity that it should have.
I wonder, listening to that, I don't know. I mean, this is just a shot in the dark here, but I wonder if they're doing that on purpose because they want you to move on from that game after. Maybe it's because, back in the day, you're playing Halo 3 or even Halo 2, like you're stuck on those games. Like even when new ones come out, like a lot of community stayed behind and kept playing those games. And maybe they don't want that because they want you to buy the new one. So they're trying to cut ties with a lot of the community-based stuff in order to, separate it all so that it's just more focused on, no, we just want you to buy the next title.
I could see that for like Call of Duty, but the thing is with Halo is they're 4 and 5 years in between a game now. So do you really want your game to die off within a year or two? It's like,
True.
because Call of Duties, there's a new one coming out every year. So hey, if you don't have the ability to talk to each other and keep the community going, hey, a new game's coming out. Let's offer this feature that'll bring everybody back in or something.
Yeah. Honestly, though, it's like ridiculous half the time. I would be playing with one of my subscribers, Cuddly Bear, and another subscriber, Cog, and we'll be playing Call of Duty. And he's like, "Yeah, did you know the next one's coming out? Are you kidding me? I feel like we've been playing this one for like a month. What do you mean the next one's coming out? It's like you almost you barely get your feet wet, and you're already moving on to the next one. You didn't have time to settle down in.
That's one of the things that I worry about. It's like these are definitely, in a lot of cases, it's blatantly a money grab. And I think that's what we talked about, in our first episode, the difference between a AAA title and an indie title. 9 times out of 10 is going to be love, right? We're not worried about making as, obviously we want to make as much money as we possibly can, but we're not exploiting that to make money. And I'll be the first person today in this podcast to bring up Stardew Valley, believe it or not. He doesn't charge, right? Oh my god.
What?
He doesn't charge for DLCs. I'll tell you right now, AAA game company, they're going to charge the hell out of DLCs for that because they see a product that people want. And it's supply and demand. Oh, you want this? Well, here comes 18 more DLCs and they're going to be $15 a piece. This guy's like, no, always free support. So, I mean, good on him.
Yep.
And I think he probably made the right decision with Chucklefish. And if they're publishing the DLC, that charge is on him. Those takes, whatever he puts out with that game that they publish for him, he's eating that cost for the good of the consumer, because the consumers are the ones that made him a multimillionaire. I mean, he made himself a multimillionaire, but the support made him a multimillionaire. And as a result, that's his way of giving back, rather than, oh, you like Call of Duty? Well, here's Call of Duty 2. Here's Call of Duty 3. Here's World at War. No. I mean, that's ridiculous. Incorrect. I mean, to your point, you just said, I feel like we've only been playing this for a month. You probably were. And I bet you there's 7 years of Call of Duty already mapped out. And these fat cats rubbing their hands and licking their chops say, oh, look at these poor schleps. They're just going to keep buying it. Oh, and let's send out a $20 DLC of the original maps for death matches. Get bent. That's stupid. That's a waste of money. But people eat it up. That's the thing. They eat it up. But that's the biggest difference. And one of the bigger differences between these AAA juggernauts and indie game developers is they care about their product. They care about their supporters. They care about their consumers.
Yeah, that's the big difference. Yeah, ever since you said fat cats licking their chops, all I'm picturing is Garfield licking.
There you go. Getting after that lasagna.
Oh, man, it was so good. It was so good. I love that. Oh, man. You're absolutely right, though, man. Absolutely. And I feel like these big AAA games that are coming, and these AAA developers are coming out with these games, like, they know they can get away with it. They know that their game's going to be a hit. They know they can sell things. People are going to buy them. It's not until people stop buying is when they're going to start freaking out, right? And so that's the opposite of like these viral hits from these small indies that are coming out. They straight up from Kronos, as we've been watching the developers for Repo, right? And they're coming out with an update already. And you remember hearing or watching that video from them that they're kind of like, it feels like they're a bit under pressure. Like they did not expect such a big turnout for their game. And because of it, now they're like frantic, like, oh my God, like, what do we need to do to keep this going? Do we need, and like that new update that came out, what do we need to bring to them, in order to get more people to play and stuff like that, or keep people on board? Because unfortunately with games like this, and you guys could probably say the same, is a lot of these games coming out, they're a flash in the pan. They come out, they're crazy popular, and then it seems like a couple weeks later they're gone and disappearing. Like, wait, whatever happened to that game?
On to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, yep. Because, a lot of times, I mean, it's, well, like with Repo, it catches the developers off guard. And if they can't get content out quick enough, then yeah, people are going to be like, well, it's kind of the same thing that we've been playing for the last 2 or 3 months. And then they're going to move on to something else, the next big thing that's popular, and I think you always need to be prepared for your game to be successful, even if you don't think it will be.
A really good point.
Like, have a backup plan ready. Like, hey, this for you, for example. I would honestly say if you want to do DLC for your game once it releases, maybe have it pretty far in development before the game comes out. To where it's like, okay, hey, if the game's out, it takes off, it becomes popular. It's like, hey, look, this far in, this is coming out. It ain't going to be, you'll have a month or two and then something new versus, 4 or 5 months until something new.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. I feel it's with a lot of games. There's a lot of talk around the indie scene. And like I stated before in a prior podcast, how many games a day get released on Steam alone, right? And I think the average is like 39 games a day. That's insane. Now, a lot of them aren't going to see too much light. A lot of them might be quote unquote shovelware. But, for the select few that have potential, like how long is their staying power? And this is getting a little off subject to our discussion on multiplayer, but it does pertain to multiplayer games as well. Because if that game doesn't hit it off right, if their main focus is multiplayer, like that game's dead in the water as soon as it comes out if they don't get it right. A single player game might be able to get away with it for a little bit, where a multiplayer game, like if you get that wrong, it's done.
I like what Kronos was kind of alluding to earlier. Some games are not meant to be fun by yourself, right? And I'll use a AAA title. The way that it's built, Fallout 76, not a huge fan of playing that game by myself. It's a lot more fun with multiple, with buddies, right?
Yeah.
Kronos, you ever play Repo by yourself? You mentioned it earlier, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I've played it quite a few times. Yeah. I mean, it's all right, but at the same time, I like, me personally too, I like playing with other people. So even, I don't know, this is a hard one to talk because I'm like, it's almost to the point where like you are just so focused when you're by yourself that it takes the fun out of it.
There it is. And that's what I'm talking about right there, Kronos. I mean, some games, to Pneumatics' point, are designed to be multiplayer games, even if you can play by yourself. It's like, hey, you can play it by yourself. Really think that you're going to have more fun if you play our game with friends. And I think using Repo as this example, to your point, Pneumatics, I think that's a game that does nail it right off the bat.
Which is funny because they initially were just going to be a single player.
Yeah. Yeah, it was going to be a single player. And all you were going to be doing was going around in these houses and cleaning up stuff. That's why the robot looks like a trash can. It's because your job was pretty much just going to be cleaning up. And it was going to be single player. There wasn't going to be, any like, if I remember correctly, there wasn't even going to be like a big item shop to where you could get like, weapons and stuff.
I feel like, based on what you guys are saying right there, that's the difference between a massive success and a flop right there. Single player versus adding multiplayer. I think that's the differentiating factor there.
Yeah, it definitely would not have been as successful if it was single player. You met, dude, the thought process in that. I would be really curious to hear from the devs. If we could ever get them on the podcast, that'd be amazing. And just be like, so what was the trigger? What did it? What made you go, let's dive into multiplayer? What do you think? Now, with that comes a lot more complexity, but the end payoff is worth it. Let's go for it, and obviously it was. Well, I think before we get into our next section, I think it'd be a good time for us to go over our question of the pod. So this time, we went over to Discord, as we always do, and we asked ourselves this question: what's the one indie multiplayer game you'd recommend to everyone, and why? So let me go ahead. I'll read off the ones from our Discord, the Indie Hangout Discord, and we'll go ahead and name off what we got going on, what we feel is something everyone should play. So, all right. So over in our Discord, we have Cryptid Gaming 4E. He says, I'd recommend everyone to at least try out Medieval Dynasty. You can play it however you want. Want a chill experience? Turn off bandits. Want to be a bandit slaying merc? Leave it on and just do that. Want to be a hunter? There's a vast majority of animals to hunt. Want to be a corrupt lord? Build your town and be mean to your citizens.
How cool does that sound?
Oh man, that's interesting, dude. I'm going to download that, or at least look it up real quick.
I'm going to look into that too, and I'll tell you right now, how fun would that be to, like, for that last thing, build your own town and run it with like 2 or 3 of your buddies?
That would be hilarious.
Good
The
answer,
corrupt
Cryptid.
lords.
I love it. Corrupt lords.
Very good. Love it. Cryptid, thank you so much for that. Definitely gonna be checking into that one. Next up, we got Yemi the Ferret goes, that's a good question. I'd recommend Golf with Your Friends. It's a really fun multiplayer mini golf game with lots of chaotic possibilities. I'll tell you what, I love mini golf, anything. And so being able to play a little mini golf game, although I can feel that getting really hectic really quick. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like getting super pissed at someone real
You
quick.
get all like competitive
So-
mode kicks in.
Yeah.
I've seen some YouTubers playing that before, and if you turn on collision, yeah, it gets hectic. Because if you're like, oh, he's about to score, I can literally hit your ball and knock it off the map, and you have to start all the way back over.
Oh my God, dude. That'd be, it's like just rage mode. Yeah. I mean, and obviously, Nyla Inc. over there, he says the same game. Gaming, going for golf with friends. He likes the multiplayer and he likes to play it.
He doesn't like multiplayer.
Oh, he says he doesn't like
Yeah.
multiplayer. So yeah, no, he doesn't like multiplayer. I totally got that one wrong. I would like to know. So Nyla puts it in there that he doesn't like multiplayer, and he plays it though. Like, why don't you like multiplayer though? It sounds like it'd be like maybe he got into a bad group. That could be it. Nyla got into the group where Kronos is saying some guy knocked his ball away and he has to start from the beginning and rage quit. I mean, that's something I would do. That'd probably get me off the game for a good week. I'll be honest.
Go and lick your wounds. Yep. I
Yeah.
know people like that. They go away for a while because they didn't go their way.
Yeah. I think maybe it depends. I'm definitely not a rage quitter, but it definitely would get me on the verge. There's only been one time I got off topic, but I'll let you guys in and the listeners on something. There was a time I was playing Call of Duty and with Bay, and we were in a multiplayer. I think it was Warzone or something. It was me, Cuddly Bear, Cog, and Bay. And I died and I freaked out, right? It was something stupid that happened. I don't know. I thought miscommunication and I freaked out. I whipped my headset down and I had a plate of chicken nuggets sitting next to me on the desk.
Oh no.
And I threw them at the wall right next to Bay. And she freaked out. She goes, what the heck?
She must have been pissed.
Oh yeah, she was super pissed at me for that. It was so funny. Like, looking back on it, it's super funny. But that's the only time Call of Duty is the only game that's gotten me to rage like that. And I didn't quit. I kept playing after that. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to get me to that point. I don't think hitting my ball off and making me restart would make me do that, but you never know, man. So besides that tangent, what were you guys' choices on this question of the pod? What's your one indie multiplayer game you'd recommend to everyone and why?
Dave the Diver. Oh no.
I don't even know how that would do.
I'd
as
say
a
personally,
multiplayer.
I don't know, that would be kind of different. But me personally, I would say I'd almost have to go with Liar's Bar.
Oh yeah.
Because of, the whole, your friends, especially if you're playing with your friends, if you're trying to deceive people that you're close to, like friends, it adds that extra layer of just fun to it, because it's not like a random person online where you're just lying to them. You're like, okay, wait, this person knows me a lot more than anybody else. It's like, how can I deceive them to where they actually think I'm telling the truth or I'm lying,
Right.
And to me, it would be a good start into multiplayer indie games, because it's also got that humor of where, you end up shooting yourself, or, you're voice acting through your character. It's a broad spectrum game that lets you do a lot with a very simple setup.
Oh yeah, for sure. That small game, that's what it all revolves around. And it's something unique, it's not just another multiplayer shooter that's jumping into. It's something different, something you're going to remember when you're done with it,
But yeah, because there's, as we always say, it's that game, it's like, I want to play that some more, not, forget about it. And Liar's Bar was definitely that game where we were all like, we got to play it again.
Yeah.
You got to play it again.
What about you, Mess?
Yeah, I've thought about this. There are a couple of them that are cool to play. One of them being Phasmophobia. I think that's an absolute blast, especially if the ones that you play with are jumpy like you knew, for one. Also, there's just so many good games out there. Another game is called Bloons TD6. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's a balloon popping game, and you can
I've played
it's so much fun. It's fun. That's one of those games that's like really fun by yourself and with friends. You can play cooperatively, and it gets really, really out of control. Like I thrive off of chaos. I love those things in games where it just gets out of control to the point like at the end of everything, you're like, what the hell just happened? That's like, those are the types of games that I love. And TD6 can actually get pretty hectic.
Wow, I've never played that one before.
Interesting.
I'll have to check it out for sure. You played that, Kronos?
Oh yes, I would highly recommend it.
I even got it on
So
mobile.
it's pretty much a. That's the only thing I've played it on is mobile.
Oh, really? I have it on Steam and I got it on mobile because it's easy to play at work.
Yeah, I just have it on my phone because I can actually take the stylus and move them, pinpoint where I want them.
There you
But
go.
it's one of those games, like where you level up your characters, and the more you level them up, the stronger they get, and the more damage they'll do, and you get to pick different upgrades. It changes them into different characters. I like games like that a lot, so that's why I really got into it.
That's why RPG is like one of my favorite genres, probably my favorite genre because of the ability to improve. But this is a tower defense game, really. So with RPG accessibility, so to speak. And we talked about that before. It's games with different types of genre fusion. Some of them work. So this has RPG elements, but it is first and foremost a tower defense game.
Oh yeah, I'm looking it up. Looks cool. Nice. Yeah, no, I've never played that one. So I'm sure that's what's nice is that we're naming off these games our listeners can jump into as well and check them out and enjoy them as well, So one that I think everyone needs to play is Stardew Valley. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go.
There it is.
Who would have thought that one?
Multiplayer. You guys need to try. I'm just kidding. I'm not going with that one. But obviously, love that game. I think I'm going to go off a little bit and I'm going to say a game like Chained Together, but I don't think it's Chained Together. There's the one I played. I think it's called Tethered or something. It was like two yarn people that me and Bay played. So it's a co-op experience instead of this multiplayer experience. So obviously co-op being a part of this discussion that we didn't really get into, but these games, like the dynamic of this is so completely different. Like, especially if you really want to try it for like me, I'm trying to get my wife to play a game with me that she'd really enjoy instead of a shooter. Like she's about playing shooters and all that too. And any kind of game I play, like I said, we played Among Us as well. But if you want a different experience, a completely different experience than any of these other ones, then a game like Chained Together is one you need to try because it can bring out a lot of frustration too, because you need to work together 100% in order to make the game work, in order to actually get through the game. But it's another one of those games that keeps in your head for like the next day, and you're like, hey, you want to play that game again? Yeah, let's see how far we can get. It's really cool. It's a really fun game. It's kind of one of those, like, I don't know. I guess there are quite a few co-op games out there, and a lot of them I've really liked a lot of co-op games, and that definitely being one of them. So that's what I love about all these games that we're naming off, right? Is because each one of them has their own experience with it. With Chained Together being more of a co-op, where you have the balloons game being that RPG element, but a tower defense, and even Liar's Bar with literally you're just sitting at a table and a matter of deception between one another. Trying to, like, you literally, if you were to have someone duplicate the game, it's like, not from now on, when someone sees a game like Liar's Bar, they be like, so that game is just like Liar's Bar. It's its own unique experience that either someone did not as well, or it's one of the first, to do it well, that everyone needs to jump in on and experience at least once.
For sure.
Something people probably don't want to experience though is having a multiplayer game that leaves a bad taste in their mouth. It's where multiplayer wasn't great. So, for example, it hurts me so much to say this. It hurts. It really does, you guys. Stardew multiplayer is not great. And from personal experience, I only played multiplayer on Stardew once, and that was enough for me. I'll be honest. I played it because I decided I'm gonna play Stardew Valley on stream, and I'm gonna have a great time. And it's one of those games like, yeah, it can do all right if you're doing some fun stuff in the game, but if you're just doing the random mundane tasks, it's probably not as exciting. It's a lot, so it's one of those games that's probably more fun playing by yourself instead of on a stream. Well, on multiplayer, I was like, well, it's got multiplayer. Let me try it out. Worst idea ever. I got my community members in, and you can only have 3 other people in there. I think it's 3 or 4. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's been a long time since I did that. And then we had, we had the one of my community members. He decided that like everyone had to sleep at the same time to progress to the next day, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna stand here next to my bed. I'm not gonna go into the bed to progress the day." And like each one of us was like, "Dude, come on, what are you doing? Just get in the bed. Let's go. We gotta go to the next day." Like and the dynamic, right? So it almost was an afterthought, and I do think it was, because we've talked about Stardew so many times before, where it was something that was added on after the game released. And obviously, the developer, Concerned Ape, was worried about releasing it without multiplayer. And in my personal opinion, he didn't need multiplayer. Maybe it works for some people, but for me, like I said, it didn't. And like, it just doesn't seem like cohesive. Like if I'm going off to go buy seeds and I'm going to go plant stuff, and someone's going off fishing and someone went to the mines, like we're all kind of just doing our own thing. We're not really doing things together unless you all go together to the mines and just destroy things. That's kind of fun. That's a fun thing about it. I think combat works in that sense. But other than that, it just feels strange. It doesn't feel like you're really working together in a sense. So
Let
that's
me
one
ask
that
you
didn't really do
this.
well, I don't think.
How is that different than Minecraft multiplayer?
I was actually gonna say that where the multiplayer wasn't that great. I was actually gonna say Minecraft for those reasons. Like, people just not wanting to, sleep, or running off discovering stuff by themselves. That if you don't go with them, you don't experience it. It's like,
Right.
I think
I
it's.
mean, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think Minecraft. So I think the difference with Minecraft, in my personal opinion, off of playing a lot, and I am one of those, I like to kind of play it by myself as well. But it's sometimes fun to jump in with the community and do builds together. So I think the difference with Minecraft compared to Stardew, like Stardew is very, very limiting, where Minecraft is not as limiting. Like, yeah, you can just be in different parts of the map and doing your own thing and just kind of chat on the in-game chat if you want, which is kind of like that same strange, you're not really working together feeling, right? But that's why I also said why I think like the Mines of Stardew works, because combat works. I think that's a together thing. Same with Minecraft. There were so many times I had like Cog and Cully Bear with me and Bay, and we were like going through the mines, and especially when they added the Warden and the fun times we had. Oh my God, so much fun. So much fun doing that. But when it came to like building, not really my forte, but it does make it a lot easier working together to build if you're like building a city or building a skyscraper. It obviously
Sure.
makes it a lot faster too. Someone's building one side, you're building the other, and then you see the finished product together. But that's where I see with it. But other than that, I do see your point, Kronos, is like, other than that, like, what else are you really doing together? Where it's, I'm going to make my base, so I'm going to make my base over here. And then neither one of you see each other for like months until you say, hey, you want to come check out my base? This is what I did. Would you agree?
yeah, for sure. Sorry, I was sidetracked there. I was actually looking through my games. I'm like, what other games have I played just to like see? But yeah, I agree with you on that one, dude. Because you spend, like I've spent a couple hours before, me and Vault, just building our bases, and we're like, we've been live, we've been playing this for 3.5 or 4 hours, and it's like, I don't even know what the other person's built. And then you go look, and it's like, okay, that's cool. It's just
right.
Now, like if you were building a base together, which nobody hardly does anymore, I would almost say Minecraft's multiplayer has fallen off in a way. When it first came out, like it was fun to play multiplayer, because everybody would build together, because it was limited resources and limited area to build. So it was like kind of stuck with your friends, and you built towns, you built bases. But as they've expanded the game, everybody's started going off, more and more doing their own thing.
Yeah, I agree with you with that for sure. Also with that, it comes with, not even just talking about, I mean, I guess that's a perfect example, right? I was going to talk about No Man's Sky for a minute, but I think going into it with like that, with player burnout, is also the problems with multiplayer. Like, I feel I don't, the best way to put this is literally Minecraft. You have to worry about griefing. Or literally from our followers over in our Discord, our listeners over in our Discord, they're talking about, golf with friends, where if you got that one person that's deciding to be very mean the entire time and constantly knock your ball out of the way and get sent back to the beginning, you're like, yeah, you can change the options so that that doesn't work. But like how annoying is that? Same as with the Minecraft and the griefing, and it can really throw you out of loop. Like that's one of the big reasons because I used to be big, big, big into Minecraft. That's where my channel really started off. Besides, well, I started off with Fallout and then I went into Minecraft and then other things as well. And it was awesome at first and then got to becoming very annoying later on with dealing with people griefing. Oh, he set my base on fire. He killed my dog, so I'm going to put lava on his house. He stole my diamonds. No, he didn't. Like, you got all these little things that become so annoying to where, like, yeah, you have options that you can try and turn off, like no fire tick and all those other options in Minecraft to make it so that's a little bit easier to handle, but you still have these issues that happen. And that might be a good point from you, Kronos, to say you feel like it's dropping off in multiplayer for Minecraft at least. And I think you might be right. Maybe that's probably a reason why is people are tired of the griefing, especially like you spend so much time playing that game and building and collecting, and then someone just destroys it in a minute, and you're like, well, why would I want to play a game with anyone again when I can go and play my own world and never have to worry about that, you know?
So yeah, like speaking from personal experience on that one, I had a realm that, I paid for, had it live, and we built giant bases in it. And I kept it going even though I quit playing Minecraft. And then I went in, it's been a couple months ago, I went in to go play and everything was destroyed. So somebody that had joined went in and destroyed everybody's bases with like thousands of TNT.
Oh,
Ridiculous.
So we had to go back, and try and find out which save was actually where it was not destroyed.
Mm.
And after that, I was like, yeah, I'm not keeping this going. I let the RAM get canceled and stuff, and I'm like, it's no point. I mean, if I'm not here monitoring it 24/7, people are just going to be idiots.
I don't miss that.
Right.
I don't. I don't miss that stuff with Minecraft, especially though he took my diamonds. No, I didn't. It's like I was, I played that on my YouTube channel, streamed that for a while, the realm and everything like that. And it got tired. To your point, Kronos, it's like I'm not doing this. So went on and did something else.
Yeah. And I mean that's like our prime example, right? But even the stupid little petty things like someone getting mad at Among Us, there's been plenty of times when I was playing Among Us, and also probably a reason why I stopped playing is because people would get mad because, oh, they're cheating, like the unfortunate thing, like me and Bae tried, but she deceived me at the end of it. But you get people like, oh, they're working together. This isn't fun. Or they're not really good at this. They got caught right away. Or even as simple as Fall Guys. It's a very competitive game. And if you're one that gets angry at losing all the time, because it could happen, because it's one of those games you could be in the lead and you can sit back all the way to being in last, it's not the game for you, And even, I don't know if you probably haven't come across this, Kronos. I don't know if you played with people that were just like, yeah, I don't care in repo and I'm going to smash everything. Hopefully not. And hopefully you don't come across that. But it's a definite thing.
We've ran into some of those, and they've actually been some of the people that we play with regularly. Because, like, everybody has those moments where they're like, okay, I'm getting tired, I want to go to bed. And, like, they'll start destroying stuff, or, like, the other night, two of the guys that were playing with us, as soon as we would revive them, they'd just run right into the monsters or run off the map. So then we were 2 players down and stuff, so it was like they were ready to quit, and they just started, like you said, fooling around, and they were breaking stuff on purpose. It was like,
yeah, and it totally ruins the whole dynamic.
Yeah, it really did, because I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm done for tonight, and we just canceled it. Pretty much called it right there, and went and played another game for 3 streams, and then finally came back to repo. But that's another thing too, is to think about, is it's like it could be a really good game, but sometimes the multiplayer experience with other people could just ruin it for you, to where you're like, I'm not playing this anymore. When in reality, the game is amazing to play. It's just you got to find those right people.
You have to find the right type of people, and in a lot of cases with some of these multiplayers, you have to be strategic. This is what we're going to do this time. Like, and we talk a strategy and figure out how we're going to do this and who's going to do what and whatnot. I'll use Don't Starve Together as an example of a multiplayer game that it wasn't great, but it was amazing at the same time. And here's why. If you are not coordinated in collectively, if you are not strategic and coordinated with everything that you do and Don't Starve Together, you are all going to die. Come wintertime, you're not going to survive. So you have to have somebody that is, foraging for food. You have to have somebody who's collecting rocks. You have to have somebody who's collecting wood so you can build shelters and hunting food and everything like that. Because when winter comes, that's when you will starve to death unless you have the necessary resources to keep yourself warm, to keep yourself fed and whatnot. So I think when we talk about these types of things, indies where multiplayer wasn't great, I think a lot of that hinges on how well you play with each other as well. Think about that for a second. Is Stardew Valley really that bad of a multiplayer game? If you're like, hey, today you go fishing, you go chop wood, I'm going to go and harvest, all those different things that you can do. If you're working as a well-oiled machine, let me ask you this then, Pneumatics. How awesome is multiplayer in Stardew Valley if you guys all agree and like, hey, I love that. And you kind of do it like stations. Today, you go fishing, Pneumatics. Kronos, you go you go ahead and cut down some trees. I'll go ahead and harvest the crops and whatnot. The next day, we kind of rotate. I do the fishing. Pneumatics does the chopping. Kronos does the harvesting. If you could be a well-oiled machine playing a game like that, is that not great anymore? Or has that become a really cool way to play the game as a team?
I think it would definitely be better. I don't know if I would 100%, if like on a scale of 1 to 10, I still think it'd probably be a 7. Wouldn't it be amazing? It'd be okay. 7's actually kind of a high score. But
I was gonna
in
say.
general, I think it'd be okay. Yeah, 7. It would make it a lot better compared to like a 2, that I experienced. So going from a 2 to a 7, if everyone's on the same task, doing the same, and all, like you said, well-oiled machine, all going towards the same goal instead of messing around. Yeah, I think I would enjoy it a lot more.
But then again, to your point, then again, it's a cozy game. I don't really feel like it's supposed to be, strategic like that. It's a single player experience where you're just kind of chilling and doing your own thing. So is it
right?
The flip side is it necessary to be multiplayer?
I would argue no. I don't think it's necessary. And I think that could be said probably for a lot of games, but maybe developers do it just to be on the safe side. Like, hey, it might make the game better if we throw a multiplayer in and have people. And that's a whole other thing too. So, point of unforeseen issues that may arise for a developer when implementing multiplayer into a game. Some they can't control, and others they figure out afterwards, like, the complexity. All right, we're going to add in multiplayer. And we keep going back to Repo, but like, I'm sure they probably thought that might be an issue where what if they get a bad egg that just wants to go around and destroy everything? There's nothing really they can do about that. Sure, they could probably put in options to try and, I don't know, stop it. But in reality, it's more of maybe the player's responsibility to either, like, the best thing for them to do is to put a kick button in, right? Mm-hmm. So they can kick the person. Other than that, it's the player's responsibility to be able to, get a good group of people to play with and enjoy the game the way it's meant to be played.
So speaking on that kick button, in the beta where, the new update, they have it out where you can try it. They actually do have a kick button.
Hey, look at that.
That's awesome.
And they added in the matchmaking, like where you can search for matches too. That's a big thing also for making games successful, is not having to only play with your friends if you don't want to.
Right.
Like, a matchmaking to where you can just search for a random match and get put in with random people. It's also how, back to like Maz was saying, you can kind of grow that community. Liar's Bar was a prime example. We random match made, people filled the lobby, and that's when we met Miles.
Yeah.
But without matchmaking, and if it was just our little friends group, we would have never met people.
Yeah. Crazy. Crazy time. You imagine never meeting Miles, you know?
Right? Like I could not imagine that right now because I mean it's been hours and hours of laughter just from meeting one random person.
All right. And with that, I think it'll be a good time that we take our ad break. And when we get back, we're going to go over some upcoming multiplayer indies that you guys would probably want to watch out for. We'll get into our poll and we'll jump into that mailbag right after this. Do you want to be a part of the next episode and steal the spotlight? Then send us your questions for the pod via dropping them in our Discord server or shooting us an email over at indiehangoutcast@gmail.com. The best ones get featured on the show, whether they be short and sweet or long and comprised of multiple questions. Even send us over some hot takes to really get the conversation fired up, and your question just may get featured in the next episode. And welcome back, everyone, to the Indie Hangout Podcast with me, Pneumatics, Osak Kronos, and Maztec Gaming. We have been on the trail of multiplayer games in the indie scene, and something you guys might want to, I think a lot of our listeners, when they're listening to these episodes, they love hearing of the new games that we're talking about, or even games that have been out for a while, but they haven't heard about them. So I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to speak of upcoming multiplayer games that they might want to watch out for in 2025. So I'll start off. The first one coming out, I've never played Elden Ring. It's not my type of game, but there is Elden Ring Night Rain coming out May 30th, 2025. It's a co-op roguelike spinoff from Software with a 3-player team. Surviving dynamic maps, its indie-like experiment design, and Elden Ring pedigree could make it a streamer favorite. So you might see a lot of it on Twitch very soon when it comes out. I'm almost guaranteeing you're going to see it all over Twitch. It'd probably be a big breakout one. And it has some unique mechanics. It has a day-night cycle. It has a shared loot system, and you got to be strategic with the people you play with. Next up, we got Dune Awakening. This one, we just talked about early access, guys. This one's coming out in early access, June 10th, 2025. I don't know if you guys are into the Dune scene. I've never watched any of them. So I guess if you are, this might be interesting. It's an open world survival MMO with base building and resource management on Arrakis. It's massive scale, and Dune IP could draw huge crowds, but its indie spirit lies in Funcom's risk-taking. So obviously, as we always talk about, indies taking risks whenever they can because they can, unlike AAA. Well, there you go. This is one of those games that they're taking a risk with their MMO. Crazy, though. A survival open world MMO. Wow.
That's gonna be fun.
I guess it's got faction-based survival and it's got spice-driven economy. Like I said, I've never watched any of the Dune, so I have no idea. It's probably going to have obviously a lot of Dune references. So if you're into that, then that'll be coming out, like I said, June 10th. We got another one, June 10th, FBC Firebreak. It's a co-op first-person shooter in the Control universe. So I don't even know what Control is. Have you guys played Control before?
Very briefly,
No.
yeah.
No. You have? Okay. So Mass has an idea at least. It is, with time bending mechanics and cross-play. It's quirky, indie-like vibe that could, make it big on Twitch. But I'm curious if it's going to be, like we said earlier, if it's going to be a flash in the pan where it's really big and then drops off. So we'll see. But that'll be a fun little one that comes out June 17th. So those are the 3 that I wanted to go over that I think that are going to be some big ones that we'll see coming up very soon.
I got one.
Here's another one.
Yeah, there's another one. It's a game called Windward Horizon, and it actually comes out today. Cool thing is, I don't know if you guys have played these types of pirate games. Not so much like Sea of Thieves, but it's more like a pirate or ship simulator game. Really cool, smaller island towns and whatnot. There was a game that came out back in the Xbox 360 days called Age of Booty. And it was a ship game where you could upgrade your ship and everything like that. You traded spices. And you also fought other little ships on your way to your trade route to either steal their spices and their rum and whatnot. They got rid of that game. That game went away and it was a real bummer. But Windward Horizon is actually the second iteration of Windward that comes out today. It's a sandbox RPG. It's going to allow you to upgrade your ships, create trade routes, build alliances, fight other ships, other pirates. I'm looking forward to getting it.
Nice.
Sounds like that could be interesting for sure.
Comes out today, May 22nd.
It's funny you bring that up because there's another game that released last week called Void Sails. That reminds me of Treasure Planet, but it also has that vibe. It's a ship. So there's tacking on. It's not, I don't think it's a multiplayer game. I think it's a single player. Yeah. Yeah, it's a single player game. So a little off topic, but it just from you speaking about that game made me think of this one. It's literally a ship that's sailing across the universe. It looks really interesting. So to say the least, but so by the time people are listening to this podcast, this game will have been out for a week. If that interests you guys too, try it out. I think I'm going to actually try it out. That's why I also mentioned it. Nice. With that, I think it's a good time to get into the polls. Going to the polls. Over on Discord and X, we went ahead and put up our poll, as we usually do for every episode. And like I said, if you're in our Discord, it kind of gives you a little glimpse of what we're going to be getting into, right? So the poll was, what's the ultimate indie multiplayer vibe that keeps you hooked? Your choices were betrayal, teamwork, chaotic shenanigans, or something else. To drop it down in the comments below. And looking over at our polls over on Discord, we got a 50-50. So 50% of the people chose teamwork and the other 50% chose chaotic shenanigans. What did you pick, Maz?
I went with chaotic shenanigans. I love it when things just get out of control, when things just go haywire. Like I was saying earlier, you get to the point where you're just like, what just happened? We were talking about Bloons TD6. That gets very, very chaotic the higher up you get in these different levels and whatnot. And I think that can create a lot of fun. And I think of Repo as well. You know, I think that's kind of like, I think that's a marriage between the two splits here, teamwork and chaotic shenanigans. Am I off base saying that, Kronos?
No, because that actually is my answer too, was chaotic shenanigans. Because, I mean, especially because of Repo. Like, just having fun and goofing off keeps me hooked on any game that I play. If I can have a good time being myself without having to be serious, I'm going to keep playing this game.
Nice. So I was the oddball. I chose teamwork. I'm a team player, guys.
I hear it makes the dream work.
But yeah, teamwork makes the dream work, man. I like teamwork in games. I get really frustrated when I'm playing a game. Maybe it's, I guess, for me, it's a loaded poll for me because I obviously like chaotic shenanigans. Depends on the people I'm playing with. Goes to your point earlier, Maz, when we were talking about all this, is that, depending on the people you play with can really depend on the play style you have that night. Like if I'm playing with my brother and we're playing back in the day, we're playing some Halo co-op, things are serious. And if things don't stay serious, someone's getting upset and a controller's getting whipped at the ground. All right. But if I'm playing online with a bunch of friends or just randoms, then chaotic shenanigans are going to ensue and it's going to be okay because it doesn't need to be serious, right? So I think that's the difference. But that's where my headspace was when I chose teamwork.
That's a good answer, man. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, but that's it. 50-50. We had an even split, even over on X. It was a 50-50 on X, 50-50 on the Discord. So there you go. People are split in between teamwork and chaotic shenanigans. So there you go. So if you guys would like to get in on the polls, like I said, either follow us over on X at Indie_Hangout or go ahead and join our Discord. Click in the About tab for Indie Hangout on Spotify or any other platform that the podcast is on, and you'll find the link down there. Next up is the last section of the episode, guys. A little sad. It's the end of the show, but we saved one of the best things for last here is the mailbag. We have another mailbag this time. We actually got a mailbag question to pull out.
What?
I know, right? Wow.
Mailbag.
This one comes straight out of the mailbag from our Discord. From Call Me Nanes. She asks, how many games would you say you buy a year? And how many do you continue to play on a regular basis? So obviously pertaining to each one of us.
That is a very good question because I buy quite a bit of games. And I would say, just throwing this out there, probably 10% of the games I buy, I continue to play.
Wow. It's not a good conversion rate, dude.
No, it's not. But I guess it's just because I'm so like picky on how I play and stuff, and it's like if that game doesn't offer a play style that fits me, I can't get into it to keep playing it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm the type that I'll try out a lot of games to see if I like them, or I just forget about them and don't play them.
Yeah, you kind of like a churn and burn with you. And I think the thing is, you are the type of person, Kronos, that should always have Game Pass handy for that reason. Because you can be like, hey,
Yes.
$12 a month. Nope, game sucks. This is a nice game. Nope. And if it goes away and you really love that game, now you know you can buy it with confidence.
Speaking on the Game Pass thing, I pay for Game Pass on my Xbox and I ain't turned it on in 3 months.
You know you can use it on PC, right?
Yeah, but back to our talking point earlier, my computer ain't up to date to play some of these newer games. I still have a GTX 1060 graphics card.
I got nothing to say to that, man.
That's rough. That's rough.
That's what took me so long to get into PC gaming, is because I'm like, I don't think my computer will run these games.
You'd
But
be surprised.
hey,
Be surprised.
it's holding up. It's playing games and streaming at the same time. I will take that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I mentioned that to you because the conversion rate is just about as good for me. I probably buy, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 games a year. Maybe. I don't know. I don't actually buy that many games. I do a lot of scoping out. Like, I might like this and I'll throw it on the wish list. I might like this, I'll throw it on the wish list. But when it comes to actually buying them, I actually hold out quite a bit. Unless it's like something like Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy. I'm like, no, I need this now. And I'm looking at Bae and she's going, really? Are you going to actually play? This is coming from my wife. Oh, really? Are you going to actually play it? Yes, you promise. If I don't see you play this, then you're not going to get another one for the rest of the year. Yes, I will.
Yeah. If you say so.
Yeah. That's when I sneak on Steam, like, I'll use the credit card on this one. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you just outed yourself, bro.
Yeah, I know. God, make sure she doesn't listen to this end part. No, but yeah, I say maybe a good, and this is being generous throughout the year, maybe 30, and probably the same as Chronos. I'll probably play like 10% of them, if that, and half the time I forget about them.
Tough.
Yeah.
I think my ADD is a big obstacle to my 10 to 20%. So I'll hold out for deals, especially when it comes to buying indie games. You can get them for pennies on the dollar. Developer sales, publisher sales. On Steam, you've got the winter sale. You've got the summer sale. Lots of ways to save money there. And sometimes I buy in bulk. I mean, I know that's what Yemi the Ferret does. And we talked about his collection last week, 2 weeks ago, having over 1,000 titles. He's not paying full price for that. He's smart. And that's what I try to do. But my biggest problem is if I'm playing a game, if I play another game and I like that even a little bit better than the one that I'm playing currently, then I start to stray. And I'm like, I don't want to play that. I'm really getting into this one. And that's the bane of my existence. So based on that, I try to play 1 to 2 games at a time only. But if I find one of those 2 games to be better than the other, then the other one goes by the wayside and forgotten. So I would probably say if I were to buy, and I'm probably in the same neighborhood as you, Pneumatics, 20 to 30 games a year, if the price is right. Maybe I'll probably play 5 to 10 of those. So probably a higher conversion rate than the 2 of you, but definitely it depends on my interest level and obviously bandwidth. We're all very, very busy.
Nice. Yeah, so we're all about in the same ballpark with that. So it's the problem of you probably run into this too. Maybe you both do. Is that when I'm playing a game, it could be a brand new game, like literally, like right now I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. It seems like for months now. I'm trying to get through it. It doesn't help that I only play it 1 time a week, which is going to change here. But because of playing that, as I'm playing, I'm like, oh, you know what? It might be nice. And I play Stardew and I play Moonstone Island on my off time. And I'm like, maybe I can. We've talked about Minecraft so much. I'm like, maybe I could jump on the Realm. But then that's a problem. And then it's like I see Maz playing Fallout. I'm like, maybe I could play some Fallout. No, stop. Because you know why? As soon as I start doing that, then I stop playing the current game I was playing. and I don't get to play anything new. I keep going to the old ones that are on rinse and repeat through my arsenal, and I never finished a damn game.
Mm-hmm. It's a vicious cycle.
That's my problem.
You know, I feel like one problem we have too is streaming. I hate to say it that way, but we want to make sure what we play is content. People can watch it. So it almost gets to the point where it's those games that you really want to play, you just like, it takes so long to get to them.
Agreed.
It was like, me personally, like the Pokemon Coliseum. I could sit here for hours and hours playing that, but I normally stream, 2.5, maybe 3 hours. The other night we was 4 hours, but like, I can't make it very far in that game in that little amount of time. And I so badly want to sit here on my day off and just play it all day long, but I don't want to sit here streaming. And it's like, nope, I gotta stream it. It's like, they restrict us so much on just playing and having fun.
And there's a solution to that, quite honestly. And it's something that I do. I haven't been playing many games offline lately, to your point, right? Because I've been streaming. But then we're also doing content creation. We've got kids. We've got life. There's a lot going on. And it's, again, I keep referencing Yemi, but he's got a list of games that he plays on his own. And then he's got his games that he streams, his backlog of streams and his backlog of personal games. And I think that's a great way to do it. Case in point, playing Grounded on my PC. You're not going to see me stream Grounded. You're not going to see any content from me from Grounded. That's my game. That's the game that I'm playing. And I think that kind of helps curb and quell that want to play that particular game. Maybe not 100%, but it certainly kind of scratches that itch. I want to play a game. And if you can keep them separated, I think it's a good method to kind of be able to wait until that next stream.
Yeah. And to not feel like, and not just that, but not to feel bad that you're playing that and not doing anything with it. That's what I fight with too. Off on a tangent, but yeah, it's having that balance. Cool. Well, guys, I think that pretty much wraps things up, wouldn't you say?
I like it.
Cool.
I think that's a good stopping point.
All right. Well, Nanes, thank you so much, aka H Money. Thank you so much for the question. Appreciate that. If you would like to, go ahead. Yeah, love it. Anyone else that is in the Discord, feel free to leave a question for us in the mailbag. We'll answer it on the next podcast episode. Or anyone who's not in Discord, I keep saying it, join it. You'll love it. You get to interact with us and all the things that we're going to be having in there for the next episodes to come. All right. And on that note, thank you so much for listening, as always. And we will see you all in the next one. Bye.
That's a wrap.
See you later.